An entire city is abandoned before it is even finished. A desert settlement thrives where life should be impossible. Silver coins circulate across empires, yet belong to no king. 3 soldiers vanish into a well and are sealed in silence for 2,000 years. A Roman ship sinks and never reaches its destination. These are not myths. They are real discoveries, frozen moments where history suddenly stopped. What happened in those final hours? Who made the decisions that changed everything? If you're fascinated by the mysteries history never fully explained, make sure to subscribe because some stories refuse to stay buried. Let's begin. At the southern edge of ancient Egypt, where the golden sands of Nubia meet the eternal flow of the Nile, lies a place that few travelers truly comprehend: the great necropolis of Aswan. To the casual observer, it may appear as nothing more than a scattering of rock-cut tombs on a barren hillside. But to historians and archaeologists, it is far more profound: a sprawling city of the dead, carved into stone to preserve the power, faith, and secrets of those who once ruled Egypt's southern frontier. What lies behind those sealed tombs? A forgotten ruler, a heretical priest, or something we cannot yet explain? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The necropolis rests on the west bank of the Nile, the side traditionally associated with death and the afterlife. For the ancient Egyptians, this was no accident. The sun set in the west, disappearing each evening into the realm of the dead, only to rise again in the east. In that daily rhythm, they saw the promise of rebirth. Here they buried their dead, trusting that their spirits would rise again with the dawn. Aswan's necropolis stretches across nearly 25 acres of rugged terrain, carved directly into cliffs of pink-hued granite. From a distance, the site resembles a massive honeycomb: tunnels, chambers, and burial shafts descending in layers into the rock. It is haunting and beautiful, a silent monument to an age when death was not an end, but a passage to eternity. Each tomb is a masterpiece of ancient engineering, painstakingly hewn by hand from some of the hardest stone in the world. Using only copper tools, dolerite pounders, and sheer human perseverance, the builders created chambers ranging from modest niches to towering halls over 3 meters high, adorned with columns shaped like papyrus stalks and walls covered in inscriptions detailing voyages, victories, and prayers to the gods. Even the simplest graves reveal reverence: fragments of pottery, bits of linen, traces of ochre, and sometimes a single ushapti, a small figurine meant to serve the deceased in the afterlife. Together, these details paint a picture of a society deeply committed to order, ritual, and the permanence of the soul. Among the most remarkable burials are those of high officials such as Harkuf and Sabu, whose tombs tell stories of diplomacy and exploration, long journeys into Africa in search of gold, ivory, and exotic treasures. Hieroglyphs depict encounters with foreign kings and treks across lands that remain mysterious even today. Yet beyond the famous names are countless others: merchants, soldiers, artisans, families, whose tombs have crumbled or vanished beneath shifting sands. Their identities are lost, their names erased, yet their presence lingers in the layered silence of the necropolis. It is among these unmarked chambers that some of Egypt's greatest enigmas still sleep. One of the most puzzling aspects is how the builders achieved such precision deep within the cliffs. Many chambers show no trace of soot or fire damage on ceilings, suggesting torches were not used. Some scholars propose that the ancients may have employed polished bronze mirrors to channel sunlight into the depths. Others speculate about lost forms of luminescent oils or crystals capable of producing a soft glow. Whatever the truth, It adds yet another layer of mystery. Aswan lay at the threshold between Egypt and Nubia, a place of both conflict and cooperation. The necropolis reflects this cultural meeting. Hieroglyphs blend with Nubian motifs. Depictions of Egyptian gods share space with African patterns. And mummies wrapped in linen are sometimes adorned with Nubian jewelry, evidence of marriages and alliances bridging two worlds. In this sense, Aswan's necropolis is more than a cemetery. It is a historical archive, a physical record of cultural exchange at one of the ancient world's most strategic crossroads. Over recent decades, Egyptian and Italian archaeologists have mapped and excavated hundreds of tombs. Yet ground-penetrating radar studies suggest that more than half of the necropolis remains unexcavated, with dozens of chambers still sealed, collapsed, or hidden behind layers of rock. Inside those untouched tombs may lie mummies wrapped in gilded cartonnage, scrolls written in forgotten dialects, jewelry inscribed with unknown names, or architectural designs unlike anything seen elsewhere in Egypt. Every sealed doorway whispers a question: who lies beyond? Some tombs may have been deliberately hidden, their entrances disguised to protect the dead from robbers. Others may have collapsed during earthquakes, permanently sealing their secrets. And what if these tombs were reserved not for commoners, but for figures deliberately erased from history? Powerful priests, generals, or members of a lost dynasty. Archaeologists have found tantalizing clues: fragments of gold leaf, carved alabaster near sealed corridors, royal cartouches deliberately chiseled out, and mummies buried with artifacts that blend Egyptian and Nubian traditions. Perhaps these tombs belong to a fallen king, a heretical priest defying the temple of Amun, or a Nubian ruler whose influence crossed borders. Each possibility has the power to rewrite Egypt's southern history. If one of these tombs were ever opened intact, it could reveal lost dynasties, forgotten religions, or entire chapters of the Nile's story that history has yet to tell. Until that day, the stone doors remain silent, sealed by time and guarded by the desert sands. The necropolis of Aswan is not merely a relic, it is a riddle. Every discovery raises more questions than it answers. We know the lives of some inhabitants, how they lived, prayed, and envisioned eternity. But for those whose tombs remain unopened, their stories hover between existence and oblivion. Who lies behind the sealed corridors? A lost dynasty? A forgotten queen? A high priest who once commanded the frontier? Or perhaps someone whose very identity would reshape everything we know about Egypt's southern borderlands? Until those doors are opened, the silence of Aswan speaks louder than words. In its grandeur and stillness, the necropolis reminds us that mystery is not merely what is unknown, but what humanity is not yet ready to understand. Beneath the desert, sealed tombs guard not just treasures, but the silent memory of a civilization. Perhaps they remain closed not by impossibility, but by purpose, awaiting the time when their stories are ready to be heard. And when those stones, untouched for 3 millennia, are finally lifted, what will emerge? A lost name, a forgotten god, or the echo of life beyond death? Beneath the silent waters of the Mediterranean lies one of the most extraordinary archaeological finds of the last century. A Roman shipwreck so remarkably preserved that it feels frozen in time. Resting beneath layers of sand and silt for nearly 2 millennia, this vessel offers a rare glimpse into the heart of ancient Roman commerce, craftsmanship, and seafaring ambition. But beyond the amphora, golden ornaments, and intricate construction, one question continues to haunt historians and divers alike. Who truly owned this ship, and what secret cargo was it carrying when it sank? Was it the private vessel of a wealthy merchant, a state envoy transporting imperial goods, or part of a religious pilgrimage? Share your thoughts in the comments below. The discovery was almost accidental. A team of marine archaeologists surveying the seabed off southern Italy's coast detected an unusually regular shape buried beneath meters of sediment. What they uncovered changed everything. A Roman merchant ship, nearly 20 meters long, lying perfectly still, as if waiting for the world to remember it. Its hull, constructed with mortise and tenon joints, joined wooden planks without the use of nails. The cargo was neatly arranged, suspended in time. Hundreds of amphora, tall, narrow ceramic jars, were stacked in perfect rows, some sealed with wax, preserving the faint scent of olive oil, wine, and garum, the fermented fish sauce that was traded like liquid gold across the Roman world. Each amphora bore distinct markings, initials, trade symbols, and stamps revealing origins from Spain, Gaul, Egypt, and the Levant. These labels illustrate the astonishing reach of Roman trade, connecting continents as seamlessly as the tides themselves. Yet amid this ordinary cargo, extraordinary treasures emerged. Hidden between the amphora were luxury items, golden jewelry, carved ivory figurines, and small bronze idols. One coin minted under Emperor Augustus gleamed faintly under the divers' lights. Such items were not typical of bulk trading ships. They hint at a more exclusive mission, perhaps a diplomatic voyage, a shipment for the elite, or even a religious expedition. The ship itself adds another layer of intrigue. Its unusually reinforced structure suggests it was built for long, perilous journeys. The presence of ballast stones indicates it carried heavy cargo, possibly statues, precious metals, or temple offerings. Scholars have proposed several theories. Some believe it was a government vessel transporting official goods or provincial taxes. Others argue it belonged to a private merchant whose fortune and identity were lost to the sea. Most fascinating is the theory that the ship carried something more secretive, spoils of war, sacred offerings, or tribute destined for Rome itself. Among the debris were fragments of marble reliefs, objects commonly used in temples, and lead ingots stamped with symbols tied to Roman legions in North Africa, suggesting a military connection. Was the ship returning from a campaign, transporting tribute or looted treasures, or heading outward from Rome to supply distant provinces with wealth? The wreck's sudden and violent end adds to the mystery. Sections of the hull were crushed inward, as though the ship struck a reef or was battered by a storm. The mast lay broken, amphorae scattered across the sand like shattered memories. Yet curiously, no human remains were found. Did the crew survive, or did they vanish entirely? Were they rescued, leaving the ship to sink, or did they perish along with it? Modern technology has allowed unprecedented study of the vessel. Using 3D sonar mapping and remotely operated vehicles, archaeologists recreated the ship virtually, revealing every beam and plank. Its design was more sophisticated than previously believed, a perfect blend of stability and speed, with a curved hull built to slice through turbulent seas. It was not merely a cargo vessel, it was a masterpiece of Roman naval engineering. And yet, the central mystery endures. Who truly owned the ship? Its cargo was too varied for a single merchant, spanning multiple provinces and trade goods, yet too personalized for a standard state vessel. No inscriptions, tablets, or ship names survived to identify it. Some scholars suggest it belonged to a consortium of merchants pooling resources across Roman provinces. Others argue it was linked to a religious order or an aristocratic family transporting offerings to temples. A few proposed it was part of a covert imperial mission, moving tribute, bribes, or sacred relics meant for private use in Rome. The mix of ordinary trade goods alongside luxury items certainly hints at dual purposes: commerce on the surface, secrets beneath. Every dive raises more questions than answers. The silence of the deep transforms the wreck into a riddle suspended between history and legend. The meticulously arranged cargo, carved symbols in the timbers, and unmarked personal items hint at lives once vibrant, ambitions now reduced to whispers in the sand. Yet there is beauty in this uncertainty. The ship is more than an archaeological discovery. It is a meditation on the fragility of human endeavor and the vastness of time. Its broken hull reflects an empire that thought it could master the sea, and yet a reminder that even the mightiest are subject to nature's whims. When divers shine their lights across the timbers, it feels as though the past breathes again, slowly, through the shadows of the ocean. The amphorae gleam faintly, coins still bear the emperor's face, and sand gently uncovers and covers the story in endless rhythm. Every fragment, every carving adds to the puzzle, but never completes it. Perhaps this is why the ship continues to captivate us. It is not only a story of trade or technology, but of mystery. Who sent this vessel to sea, and what fate guided its final voyage? A nameless merchant? A noble family? An imperial envoy? Until new evidence emerges, the ship's owner remains an eternal secret, guarded by the deep. Amid the black basalt deserts of eastern Jordan, where the wind slices through the emptiness like blades, and the sands have lain undisturbed for thousands of years, rise the ruins of a city that, by all logic, should never have existed. No rivers, no fertile soil, no obvious source of life. And yet, once upon a time, the air here echoed with church bells, children's laughter, and footsteps on stone. The black basalt walls still rise defiantly against the desert, enduring more than a millennium, as if refusing to be swallowed by time. Archaeologists refer to it as a lost Byzantine city, often associated with al-Jamal or Arasas, though its true name is lost to history. Within these cold, silent walls lies a story yet untold, a question that still haunts researchers. Who built this city in such a hostile place, and for what purpose did they dare to defy both the desert and history itself? Could it have been the work of displaced monks, forgotten settlers, or a vanished culture entirely unknown to us? Share your thoughts in the comments below. When explorers first reached the site in the 19th century, they were stunned. The ruins spread across a wide plateau of dark volcanic stone, forming walls, arches, stairways, and even multi-story houses carved entirely from black basalt. The architecture bore Byzantine hallmarks, crosses etched into walls, arched windows, and carefully proportioned churches. Yet something about the city felt alien, too isolated, too self-contained. There was no nearby river, no trade route, no port. It was a city that seemed to have chosen exile. The craftsmanship still astonishes archaeologists. Every wall, arch, and staircase was assembled from basalt blocks cut with breathtaking precision and stacked so tightly that no mortar was needed. Centuries later, these stones remain perfectly balanced, surviving earthquakes and the slow erosion of time. How could builders of the 6th century, without cranes or modern tools, cut, lift, and set multi-ton stones with such flawless accuracy? Some speculate a lost construction technique. Others see it as evidence of sheer human determination, a civilization intent on creating a city to outlast time itself. Hidden beneath the desert sands lies another marvel, an intricate underground hydraulic system. The Byzantine inhabitants carved catchment pits, channels, and reservoirs directly into the basalt to capture rainwater and even desert dew. Domed seals prevented evaporation and sand intrusion. Through this ingenuity, a seemingly lifeless plateau became habitable, sustaining a thriving community for centuries. Many of these water systems still hold water today, enduring proof of the intelligence of those who dared to live here. The urban layout itself was unusual. There was no central palace, no grand forum, no administrative heart. Instead, the city featured more than a dozen churches, each unique in style and decoration. Some mosaics were unlike anything found elsewhere. Winged beings, celestial cities, geometric patterns, and strange symbolic images rather than the typical Byzantine saints or emperors. These suggest a spiritually independent community, perhaps monks or hermits detached from Constantinople's authority. Others propose a fusion of Christian and older local beliefs, a cultural blend rarely documented in official records. Contradictions abound. Inscriptions appear in Greek, Latin, and Nabatean scripts, sometimes within mere meters of each other. Pottery reflects Roman, Byzantine, and earlier Nabatean influences, hinting at layers of settlement over time. Yet official documentation is silent. No Byzantine map marks a settlement of this size. Oral traditions from local tribes speak of black cities built by spirits of fire, perhaps myth born of awe or echoes of a real forgotten civilization. By the 8th century, the city was abandoned. There are no traces of invasion, no weapons, no burned homes, no mass graves. Only collapsed roofs and scattered possessions suggest a sudden disappearance. Earthquakes may have contributed to the ruin, but seismic activity alone cannot explain the total evacuation. How could a city so ingeniously built, capable of surviving the desert for centuries, vanish without a trace? Several theories attempt to answer this mystery. Some propose it began as a Nabatean outpost later absorbed by Roman and Byzantine settlers. Others suggest Christian refugees, monks seeking solitude, or a community deliberately isolated from imperial control. Another theory points to a military colony, placed strategically to guard the frontier between Byzantium and emerging Arab kingdoms. Yet no single explanation fits all the evidence. The city seems to embody both practicality and symbolism, as if each stone was laid with ritual intent. Archaeologists speculate that different groups may have contributed to its construction. Romans building foundations, Byzantine Christians erecting churches, and local tribes adding homes. If true, it represents a rare historical experiment, a multicultural community at the edge of empires, united by survival rather than politics. Inside one ruined church, mosaic inscriptions mention names of unknown patrons, not nobles, not clergy, but ordinary people. Perhaps this was the essence of the city, a civilization of forgotten believers who defied history itself. And yet questions remain. Why so many churches so far from imperial centers like Antioch or Jerusalem? Why such artistic effort in isolation? Why no signs of governors, fortifications, or rulers? Modern archaeologists using drones and ground-penetrating radar continue to uncover subterranean rooms and sealed chambers, their contents unknown. Perhaps ancient archives or sacred relics still lie buried beneath the basalt. Perhaps the city extends far beyond what we see, a lower level carved entirely into the rock. If so, this lost Byzantine city may be only partially revealed. Its builders remain nameless, its purpose remains unknown. Were its inhabitants truly Byzantine or something in between, a hybrid culture forged from the ashes of Rome and the sands of Arabia? As dusk falls over the black basalt walls, the ruins glow crimson before sinking into darkness, leaving only the wind and imagined footsteps. Here, at the edge of the world, faith defied geography, and ordinary hands created something extraordinary. Every stone, every mosaic, every hydraulic channel whispers the same haunting question. Who truly built this city in the desert, and why? Among the countless ruins of the Roman Empire, few are as haunting as the so-called unfinished Roman town in northern Britannia. Buried beneath centuries of soil and silence, it tells the story of a grand ambition that stopped midway. The outlines of roads, baths, forums, and military barracks stretch across the landscape like blueprints frozen in time. Every feature suggests the Romans intended a thriving settlement, perhaps a major administrative or strategic hub, but inexplicably, it was never completed. No written record explains why. There is no mention of battle, no trace of natural disaster. What remains is the eerie stillness of a place that never truly lived. This city was not destroyed, it was abandoned in the middle of its birth. Half-carved sandstone blocks, foundations barely rising to knee height, and storage rooms still sealed with raw materials give the impression of a workforce that simply vanished. The Romans were meticulous builders, known for their precision, efficiency, and organization. For them to abandon a project mid-construction suggests something extraordinary, a sudden, overwhelming event that forced the workforce to leave and never return. What do you think happened to them? Were they recalled by the empire? Or did something stranger drive them from the site? Share your theory in the comments below. Archaeologists have mapped the town's layout in astonishing detail. It follows the typical Roman grid, Cardo and Decumanus streets intersecting at right angles, a central forum, bathhouses, warehouses, and military quarters. Stone columns rise waist-high before ending abruptly, as if the masons dropped their chisels and disappeared. Wooden scaffolding, long decayed, once supported half-built walls. Storage pits filled with lime and crushed gravel, abandoned carts with rusted fittings, all point to an organized construction site that stopped in an instant. In the Roman world, building a town was a massive logistical feat. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of laborers, soldiers, slaves, freedmen, stonemasons, carpenters, and engineers worked under careful supervision. Materials were transported from distant provinces, and each coin spent was meticulously recorded. And then, just like that, everyone was gone. No mass graves, no evidence of evacuation, no signs of attack or rebellion. Some scholars suggest a sudden redeployment. Around this period, uprisings among local tribes in northern Britain could have forced the Roman authorities to recall laborers and soldiers overnight. Scaffolding was left standing, tools abandoned, workers' huts empty. Yet even this theory doesn't explain everything. Personal belongings, sandals, brooches, coins, food vessels remain scattered across the site, implying the workers expected to return, but they never did. Other archaeologists propose a sudden outbreak of disease. Traces of lime layers, possibly used to sanitize contaminated areas, suggest concern about infection, though no human remains large enough to confirm mass deaths have been found. Another possibility lies in fear, superstition, omen, or perceived curse. Several altars discovered near unfinished structures bear Latin inscriptions invoking the guardian spirits of the foundation. One damaged tablet roughly reads, "To appease the earth that resists the stone." Was this a prayer, a warning, or a desperate act to calm divine wrath? Romans were deeply spiritual. If earthquakes, strange weather, or accidents occurred, builders often believed the gods were offended. Sacrifices were offered to restore favor, and sometimes entire projects were abandoned when omens persisted. Some scholars even suggest local resistance. The land may have been sacred to native Britons, and rumors of divine retribution could have spread panic through the camp. The site also yielded remarkable discoveries, including what is now called the Corbridge Hoard. Hidden underground were armor, weapons, tools, and personal effects, carefully arranged rather than discarded. Among these artifacts was a nearly complete lorica segmentata, the segmented iron armor of a Roman legionary, packed with repair tools, nails, and a small oil lamp. Everything suggests intention. Someone meant to return, but never did. Fingerprints and hand impressions remain on unfinished stone blocks, silent testimonies of lives interrupted. Politics may have played a role as well. Roman priorities could change overnight. A new governor, rebellion, or reallocation of funds might halt any provincial project. Workers, slaves, soldiers, and hired locals could be reassigned immediately. But unlike most unfinished towns, which were often later repurposed or completed, this one remained untouched for centuries. Even later generations avoided building atop it, as if some unspoken memory warned them away. What truly happened to the vanished builders? Were they recalled, reassigned, or consumed by disease? Did they flee divine wrath, obey imperial orders, or fall victim to something else entirely? The ruins give no answers. Standing among the half-built walls, one feels the weight of untold stories. Each stone asks a question, every abandoned tool whispers a life interrupted. The Romans built to last for eternity. Here, eternity began halfway. A city planned for greatness, built with precision, blessed by an empire, yet never lived a single day. And perhaps that unfinished dream is what makes it most haunting. Beneath its small, unassuming surface lies one of history's most enduring mysteries, the silver Getal coin. At first glance, it appears to be just another piece of ancient currency, but look closer, and you discover a silent witness to a crossroads of civilizations, where Greek artistry met Persian craftsmanship, where Hindu deities shared space with Islamic inscriptions, and where trade and faith blurred into a fascinating enigma. Forged somewhere across modern-day Afghanistan, Pakistan, and northern India, these coins tell a story no empire dared claim. They also hide a question that still puzzles historians. Who truly had the authority to mint them? Who stood behind the silver Getals? Share your thoughts in the comments. Perhaps together we can edge closer to one of South Asia's oldest unsolved riddles. The silver Getal emerged in an era when Gandhara and Kabul served as melting pots of cultures. Here, Alexander the Great's Greek legions once met native Hindu traditions. Persian traders passed through, and Islam gradually spread across the region. When the first Getal coins were discovered in northern Pakistan and eastern Afghanistan, scholars immediately noted something unusual. They did not resemble other contemporary coinage. Each coin is layered with symbolism: Hindu gods, Greek letters, Persian motifs, and sometimes early Arabic inscriptions. This fusion was not just decorative, it reflected a society where commerce and belief intertwined, and boundaries of power and faith overlapped. Yet this very complexity deepens the central mystery. Who minted these coins? At the time, at least 3 major empires and dozens of small kingdoms ruled the region, each issuing its own currency. And yet, the silver Getal seems to belong to none of them. Accepted everywhere, yet claimed by no one. One of the most striking features is the depiction of the Hindu god Shiva riding the bull Nandi on one side, while the reverse bears Arabic inscriptions. How could an Islamic administration, which forbade divine depictions, allow coins with Hindu gods? Some scholars suggest this reflects a transitional period when the Hindu Shahi kingdoms fell under Islamic control. To maintain economic stability, the new rulers may have retained familiar symbols to reassure locals while asserting their own authority through inscriptions. Another theory proposes that the silver Getal was never state currency at all. Perhaps it was a private trade coin issued by multi-faith merchant networks more concerned with commerce than doctrine. Either way, the coins reflect a society where Hindus, Muslims, and even Buddhists coexisted, creating a cultural and economic fusion unique to the region. Unlike Roman or Greek coins, which clearly display rulers' names, dates, and symbols, many silver Getals carry no identifiable authority. Instead, they bear cryptic marks, emblems, or deliberately erased inscriptions. Some economists suggest this anonymity was intentional. The Getal may have functioned as a neutral trade coin, bypassing imperial taxes and recognized by Hindu, Muslim, and even Persian traders alike. The coin's distribution is remarkable. Examples have been found from Afghanistan and Pakistan to Nepal and northern India. Their uniform size and weight suggest centralized control. But by whom? A merchant guild? A forgotten dynasty? Though they are believed to date from roughly the 8th to 12th centuries CE, the craftsmanship seems far ahead of its time. Under microscopic examination, engravings of Shiva, Nandi, and mounted warriors reveal near-perfect symmetry. Circular borders are evenly carved. The silver surfaces are polished with alloys and methods not seen in Europe for centuries. Such precision indicates a professional minting system operated by skilled artisans with advanced metallurgical knowledge, yet no known dynasty claimed such technology. Could it have been the work of an independent guild, a secret society of silversmiths, or the last remnants of a vanished civilization? Many Geetles also depict a mounted warrior with a spear, images that correspond to no known ruler. Some scholars see them as representations of Rajput warriors famed for valor, while others believe they symbolize a protective deity. This suggests the Geetle may have been more than money. It could have been a talisman carried by merchants and travelers along perilous Himalayan trade routes. Coins have been discovered in sites with no direct political connection, buried alongside gold and gemstones, or scattered through ancient markets and shrines. Yet nowhere do contemporary records mention their minting, taxation, or regulation. Unlike the strict monetary systems of empires like the Kushans, Ghaznavids, or Hindu Shahis, the Geetal operated in silence. Modern historians sometimes describe it as a proto-cryptocurrency, a non-state medium of exchange, backed by trust and intrinsic silver value, not by decree. Despite hundreds of excavated coins, no authority can be definitively linked to their production. The Kushans, Hindu Shahis, and Ghaznavids have all been suggested, but none fits perfectly. Each left distinct iconography, yet the silver Geetal seems to exist above all, belonging to no kingdom at all. Some propose it was issued by a trans-regional merchant alliance controlling silver from the Hindu Kush mines, or by a local guild that bridged cultural and religious divides. Others speculate it could be the final relic of a lost kingdom, filling the historical void between the fall of the Hindu Shahis and the rise of Islamic rule in the region. If so, the silver Geetal represents the last trace of an unnamed civilization erased from history, but immortalized in silver. The absence of mentions in Persian, Arabic, or Indian chronicles only deepens the mystery. Someone once controlled the power to mint silver, dominate trade, and vanish without a word. Today, silver Geetals rest in museums from Kabul to London, yet their secret endures. Some see them as proof of cultural unity, others as evidence of an ancient secret economy or the final whisper of a forgotten kingdom. One question still gleams on every coin's surface. Who truly controlled the silver Geetal? A lost kingdom, a merchant alliance, or a fleeting pact of faith and power? It began as an ordinary excavation in eastern Croatia near the modern town of Vinkovci, one of Europe's oldest continuously inhabited settlements. But what the archaeologists uncovered was anything but ordinary. Beneath layers of clay and crushed stone lay a Roman well over 10 meters deep, built with precisely cut limestone blocks that had endured nearly 2 millennia. What stunned the team was not the well itself, but what it contained. At its bottom lay 3 Roman soldiers, still clad in armor, their sandals with iron hobnails intact, fragments of military equipment engraved with insignia of the Legio ex Gemina, the Twin Legion, a once elite force stationed along the empire's frontiers. The men were stacked atop one another, as though they had fallen in a single horrifying instant. There were no grave markers, no rituals of farewell, just silence and darkness. The skeletons were exceptionally well preserved, shielded from decay by the sealed environment. Even remnants of leather, copper fittings, and traces of fabric clung stubbornly to their forms. The discovery raised a haunting question. What really happened here? Were these men victims of ritual sacrifice, acts of revenge, or something far stranger? Nearly 2,000 years ago, Vinkovci, then known as Cibale, was a bustling Roman settlement in the province of Pannonia, a strategic outpost connecting the Roman world with the turbulent frontier lands beyond the Danube. Soldiers, merchants, and settlers lived alongside native tribes, an uneasy coexistence at the empire's edge. By the mid-3rd century, the Roman Empire was in turmoil. Emperors rose and fell, armies turned on each other, and rebellions erupted across the provinces. Order slipped in the frontier regions, and it was during this chaos that the three men met their end and somehow ended up at the bottom of the well, preserved for eternity. The positions of the bodies puzzled experts. Limbs were twisted, but not violently broken. There were no blunt force injuries or weapon strikes. Their armor remained intact, belts and insignia untouched. Were they killed elsewhere and dumped, or did they fall alive? If this was a crime, it was clean, deliberate, and precise. Among the well's layers, archaeologists also found ceramic fragments, animal bones, Roman coins from the 3rd century, and a small bronze figurine of Mercury. Traces of burnt material suggested a ritualistic element. Some experts proposed that the soldiers may have been sacrificed, offerings to gods believed to control fortune, disease, or war. In Roman religion, wells were sometimes viewed as portals to the underworld, places to appease subterranean deities. Yet another possibility is revenge. These men could have been hated representatives of Roman authority, ambushed and thrown to their deaths by local tribes. In the 3rd century, Pannonia experienced numerous uprisings, including revolts led by commanders like Ingenuus, who challenged Emperor Gallienus around 260 CE. Could these soldiers have been loyalists executed during such unrest? DNA analysis revealed something intriguing. The three men came from diverse regions, one from southern Italy, another from the Balkans, and the third from Central Europe. Such diversity was typical of Roman legions, but it raises questions. Were they comrades or strangers brought together by chance? The uniform sediment layers suggest they entered the well simultaneously, a single, deliberate event. If it was ritual, who could sacrifice Roman soldiers in a controlled military region? If revenge, how did unarmed locals overpower trained legionaries without injuries? And if execution, why use a well instead of a battlefield or grave? Each theory leaves contradictions. The well was dry, the bodies bore no marks of struggle, nothing was looted. Perhaps fear, not violence, was the cause. In ancient societies, wells could also be associated with disease. It's possible the men succumbed to illness and were disposed of to prevent contamination, or they were executed under secret orders by fellow Romans. The truth, however, is lost to the earth along with their bones. Today, the site remains one of Croatia's most haunting archaeological discoveries. The well, once a symbol of life-giving water, became a tomb of silence. Their armor is preserved in museums, and forensic reconstructions of their faces gaze into eternity, eyes filled with unanswered questions. Who were they? Victims? Martyrs? Criminals? Or sacrifices to an unseen god? New scans of the surrounding area hint at other buried structures, perhaps remnants of a Roman garrison or even a sanctuary built later over the well, as if subsequent generations sought to conceal what had been done rather than uncover it. The mystery endures. In that silent well, history whispers without reply. Hidden for nearly 2,000 years beneath a suffocating blanket of volcanic ash, the walls of the Villa of the Mysteries in Pompeii emerged into daylight as if time itself had hesitated to touch them. What archaeologists expected to find was the familiar ruin of a Roman residence. What they encountered instead was something far more unsettling. A room still alive with color, movement, and emotion, preserved as though the last footsteps had only just faded. This was no ordinary decoration. It was a world frozen in ritual motion, a stage where gods and mortals still performed their roles. The murals, now known as the Dionysian frescoes, remain among the most powerful and psychologically complex artworks ever recovered from the ancient world. They are not simply images on a wall, they are an immersive experience, spiritual, emotional, and deeply human. Even today, standing before them raises a haunting question. What gives these Pompeian frescoes their astonishing sense of depth and vitality, surviving more than 2 millennia as if untouched by death? In the year 79 CE, Mount Vesuvius erupted with catastrophic force, burying Pompeii beneath more than 6 meters of ash and pumice. The city was annihilated in a matter of hours, yet that same destruction became an act of preservation. Sealed from air, moisture, and light, entire buildings were entombed in silence. Within the Villa of the Mysteries, a rectangular chamber remained almost perfectly sealed. When excavators entered the space in the early 20th century, their torchlight revealed walls of deep crimson so intense they seemed freshly painted. Figures emerged from the darkness, women in flowing garments, ritual objects, mythic beings, and faces charged with fear, ecstasy, and anticipation. The room did not feel ancient, it felt present. This extraordinary preservation transformed the villa into one of archaeology's most intimate time capsules, offering a rare glimpse not only into Roman art, but into Roman belief, psychology, and emotional life. Scholars quickly recognized the central figure of the imagery, Dionysus, the god of wine, transformation, ecstasy, and rebirth. The murals appear to depict an initiation ceremony into his secret cult, one of the so-called mystery religions of the ancient world. These rites were not public, their meanings were concealed. Initiates were sworn to silence. The sequence unfolds like a visual narrative. A young woman enters the sacred space. She confronts fear and symbolic death. She endures trials, both psychological and spiritual, and emerges transformed, welcomed into the presence of Dionysus himself. Whether this represents an actual ritual performed in the villa or a symbolic journey of spiritual awakening remains debated. What cannot be disputed is the emotional force of the imagery. Every gesture, every glance, every suspended movement draws the viewer inward. The space feels part temple, part theater, part waking dream. What makes these frescoes truly extraordinary, perhaps even more than their subject, is the technique. Roman painters worked in true fresco, applying pigment directly onto wet plaster so that color chemically bonded with the wall. This method was widely used. What was not common was how the artists of the Villa of the Mysteries transformed flat surfaces into an illusion of living space. The walls do not feel like walls. They open outward. Figures appear to step forward, casting shadows and occupying a shared floor that recedes into depth. The sense of space is continuous, wrapping around the viewer. This mastery of illusion anticipates later developments in spatial realism by more than a millennium, not through mathematical perspective, but through intuitive visual intelligence. The effect is almost cinematic. A young initiate recoils in fear as a winged figure raises a whip. A satyr turns his head mid-motion, caught between moments. A matron gazes outward, as if responding to a sound beyond the frame. These figures are not frozen, they feel suspended within an ongoing action. The observer does not merely look at the fresco, the observer enters it. Modern conservation studies reveal how this illusion was achieved. Artists layered pigments in subtle gradients, mimicking the way light behaves on flesh and fabric. Skin tones were modeled with delicate washes of red ochre and white. Drapery was built through translucent layers that catch and bend light, creating softness and volume. The result is a tactile realism that seems to breathe. Even more intriguing is the room's spatial design. Painted architectural elements follow a carefully coordinated visual system. Though not based on later mathematical perspective, the composition subtly guides the eye toward a unified depth. When standing at the center of the room, the viewer experiences a continuous panoramic illusion, as if surrounded by a single unfolding space. The sensation can feel disorienting, almost vertiginous, like standing inside an ancient form of immersive reality. This demonstrates not just artistic skill, but a sophisticated understanding of human perception. Long before optics were formally studied, these painters understood how the eye and mind interpret space. Equally striking is the mastery of chiaroscuro, the balance of light and shadow. Figures emerge from the deep red background like sculptures illuminated by torchlight. Highlights glint on skin and jewelry. Shadows gather beneath feet and folds of cloth, giving weight and presence to the bodies. Unlike later medieval art, which flattened form to emphasize the divine, these painters embraced physicality. They celebrated the human body, movement, and sensuality, core elements of the Dionysian worldview. Color itself carries meaning. The dominant hue, the famous Pompeian red, was created using cinnabar, a mercury sulfide pigment, brilliant, costly, and toxic. Under lamplight, it would have shimmered like living flesh. To the Romans, red symbolized vitality, sacrifice, power, and transformation. The surrounding dark borders suggest the unknown, the threshold before initiation. Between them, the figures enact the eternal cycle of death and rebirth. The room is structured like a stage. Painted columns frame each scene. Every wall presents a moment. Every figure is an actor. The characters seem to exist between worlds, the mortal and the divine. A young girl, veil lifted, face pale with anticipation, embodies the initiate confronting sacred knowledge. An older woman stands nearby, her gaze stern and guiding, representing wisdom earned through experience. At the edges, satyrs and maenads, wild companions of Dionysus, dance in ecstatic frenzy, half human, half divine. At the center, Dionysus himself reclines in serene transcendence, supported by a mortal woman. The image symbolizes union between humanity and divinity, body and spirit. What is most remarkable is the empathy embedded in the art. The painters captured not only anatomy, but emotion, fear, surrender, awe, and transformation. These figures are not symbols alone, they are people, standing at the threshold between two states of being. Despite decades of study, many mysteries remain. Who commissioned these frescoes? Were they created by a single master or a coordinated workshop? Was the villa's owner a true devotee of Dionysus, or was the imagery intended as elite cultural symbolism? And how did Roman artists achieve such illusionistic sophistication centuries before formal perspective theory emerged? Some scholars suggest influence from Greek theatrical design. Others propose now lost treatises on optics and visual harmony. Whatever their origin, the frescoes represent a leap, artistic, psychological, and technical, far ahead of their time. Beyond beauty and technique lies symbolism. Dionysus, god of resurrection and transformation, embodies the eternal rhythm of destruction and renewal. The frescoes were painted in a city destined to perish by fire and ash, and yet, through catastrophe, they survived. Pompeii died, these walls endured. The Villa of the Mysteries became a living reflection of the Dionysian myth itself. From death came preservation, from chaos, rebirth. Standing inside the room today, visitors often feel something no image can convey. The space seems to breathe. The red walls pulse with presence. Painted eyes follow in silence. These frescoes are not merely survivors of antiquity. They redefine what ancient art was capable of achieving. Long before Leonardo or Caravaggio, unknown Roman masters had already learned to shape light, bend space, and capture emotion with extraordinary depth. Their genius still whispers from beneath the ashes, reminding us that true artistry does not vanish with time. It waits patiently to be uncovered.